And recently, there was a gentleman by the name of Jason Arday. And Jason Arday was a professor. He was the youngest professor of sociology and one of the youngest professors, black professors, ever hired at Cambridge University. And so we have this black professor at Cambridge University, a promising career, young black fella. And what happens is, he is going about his business, and he's working, he's teaching, he's prospering and all these things. And then there's this fellow that comes along whose name is Nathan Kofanis. This Nathan Kofanis comes along, and he is he's an American, and he's a conservative, a right-wing conservative, and he comes along, and what he does is in 2004, he gets fired from Emmanuel College, that's located in Cambridge, but it's not Cambridge University. He gets fired from Emmanuel College, excuse me, after he published some of his views. And one of the things that he published was he published something that said that without imposed diversity in recruiting, black people would disappear from almost all high-profile positions outside of sports and entertainment. Now, this was a racist trope, just an outright, blatant racist trope. And he published this. This is a man in an academic institution who was supposed to be a scholar, and he publishes this. So the university recognizes, and they see him because there's an outcry, there's a backlash. People are like, who is this racist guy saying this crazy stuff? This is ridiculous. Because there are many, many renowned black academic scholars in many, many different fields. You have black people that have had major breakthrough research you got black people that were instrumental in creating the COVID vaccine. You got black people instrumental in every field. You got major inventors and scientists. You got black people have done amazing things in science and technology. And the ideal to say that they would disappear from almost all high-profile positions outside of sports and entertainment is it is just so blatantly and patently racist that the university fired him. And so he got another job at Ghent University. And at this university, what he did was he identified this young black professor, and he targeted this young black professor. And what he did was he went through and looked at this young black professor's academic credentials, and he looked, like, for example, his resume. And like, if you understand a resume, like a person may put stuff on their resume that they may have had a connection to. And when, let's say, someone comes along later and that they're going to investigate whether or not something is true on a person's resume, sometimes it might be difficult for a person, especially someone who's not really trying to discover the truth, that they will go and they'll find something to say, oh, well, there's no documentation that you may have went here or did that, but that person actually did it, that there are connections between that person and those events or whatever it is. And it ends up on a resume. And it becomes more of it doesn't become such a major issue that it will cost somebody their life. It's just something a discrepancy that happens. But this guy pursued this. And not only that, he went back to this young man's dissertation, his PhD dissertation. And he found some materials that were not properly attributed. In other words, when you write a dissertation or a capstone project, you write an academic paper, what happens is you attribute things. Like, you may get ideals from someone else, from someone else's writings, and then you credit them, you reference them. And then in addition to that, you even may quote some things and reference them. That's perfectly normal. It's part of the academic community. But what happens is it is not uncommon, especially for a person who's doing a dissertation, that's a young academic or whatever, and they go through, and you could probably go through the dissertations of most people with a PhD, and you can find something that you could say somebody else wrote. You could find something that you could say that they should have attributed. And you may even find things that a person in their preparation of their documents, they may omit a reference. They may fail to properly attribute something. You've had, for example, Melania Trump was plagiarized Michelle Obama's speech, just outright. You have people like Jane Goodall and Helen Keller and many, many others who've been accused of plagiarism. And, plagiarism was an issue because they said something that should have been attributed to someone else. So this is not something that doesn't happen, and it's not something that should destroy a person, but it is something that, it could be an honest mistake and not just somebody attempting to commit some type of blatant fraud or some type of thing like that. But what this Nathan Kofanis did, he promoted this thing as if Jason Arday was some kind of culprit, and that he was proving his ideal that without diversity in recruiting, Black people would disappear from almost all high-profile positions outside of sports and entertainment. That's his thesis. This is what he's argued in the past. So now he's taken efforts to single out the youngest Black professor at Cambridge and try to destroy him. And he writes this article called DEI Fraud and Cover-Up at Cambridge. And he created such a scandal around this fellow's life that he unalived himself. And he probably he couldn't imagine being subjected to this type of situation. And the issue is not whether or not he made a mistake or whatever. And he said that he didn't make a mistake, that he didn't commit any fraud. And so in terms of looking at this and understanding this, you can look through, and let's say you got a person that they attribute something in their paper, and they may quote directly from someone and present something directly. And then they'll list them in the bibliography, but they don't specifically reference the page or whatever. They don't specifically annotate it in such a way where you could go, and pull it directly. When we look at the whole nature of this thing, that this person, if we were to look at the evidence surrounding it, this Nathan Kofanis, he was actually acting as a blatant, overt racist. And this is a blatant, overt racist attack targeting a Black professor at Cambridge University that ended up resulting in this young man taking his own life, or reportedly, potentially taking his own life, because we don't know for sure that he did. He could have been unalived by somebody else. We don't know, from the right wing. We don't know that at this point. But when we look at this and understand the nature of it, this is the kind of warfare we're in. Because what this guy did was he used social media to try to destroy this man. He presented information that went viral on social media and that just pounded this guy with this information, and it destroyed him. And so in terms of looking at and understanding the nature of this, now the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, his ambassador to Belgium, intervenes in the situation and comes in to try to get this Kofanis fella reinstated to his job, to get him reinstated. And then he appears on the Charlie Kirk show in the United States. the Charlie Kirk show. He appears on the Charlie Kirk show.